This Sunday we celebrate Passion Sunday, or as it's known in many churches, Palm Sunday. It is the beginning of Holy Week, the most solemn week of the liturgical year. This year we will be reading from the Passion narrative from St. Luke's Gospel. I wish to reflect with you on the illumination of the crucifixion from St. Luke's Gospel, done by Donald Jackson in the Gospel according to Luke. The viewer seeing it for the first time is simply overwhelmed by the amount of gold in this illumination. In fact, it's all we see. It represents the dazzling, brilliant, gracious gift of God's love and forgiveness for humankind and for all of creation. When I first saw this, it reminded me immediately of the crib scene at the beginning of Luke's Gospel. And again, a very strong horizontal line going right in through the center of the illumination, connecting, if you will, heaven and earth. Jackson in this portrayal is telling us, as the Gospels do, that as painful, awful, horrible, nightmarish as the crucifixion is, it does not snuff out or cancel the glory of the crucified, risen Christ. As such, this illumination, I believe, represents a composite of the crucifixion as it's described in Luke's Gospel, but also as it's portrayed in John's Gospel. In John, the evangelist imagines that as Jesus is lifted on the cross, he is already lifted in glory. Death and sin and all that's wrong with the world are already overcome by the dying of Jesus. And all we have is Christ lifted in glory. This rendering also reminds us of the readings from Philippians 2, which we hear this Sunday, in which Jesus, who is emptied completely, is then lifted up to glory to the right hand of the Father and given the name above every other name. That's what we see in this illumination. Once we get over all the gold and start looking to other parts of this illumination, what we see here is the dark purples and blacks and other colors, representing, if you will, the tearing and rendering of the curtain in the temple, which has the stars and planets from the heavens on it. It's telling us that, in fact, all earthly kingdoms, no matter how good or how awful, will ultimately end up in the dustbin of history when they encounter God's reign. On the right side, in this bare shadow here, we see the other cross, and it's the cross of the repentant thief. Frankly, that's us. That's our cross in the shadow of the cross of Christ. At the very bottom here, we see the disciples gathered, the disciples who are looking on and seeing the crucifixion. They're there, witnessing, and they will become witnesses to the cross and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And they are already saved by that cross and resurrection. The sheer power of this illumination seems almost to step out of the page, to say to us that the power of the cross and resurrection of Jesus Christ moves into history. It breaks through all time and space, and becomes a part of every generation, the life of every person on the planet, and in fact, all of creation. And it makes, through the gifts of healing and forgiveness, it makes possible a new destiny for human beings and the creation.